On today's episode of the Inside Athletic Training Podcast, we're joined by Jim Kahmann, former head athletic trainer for the Minnesota Twins and a PBATS alumni member, and author of his new book about life and learning in minor league baseball as an athletic trainer. Jim reflects on his journey through pro baseball, the evolution of athletic training, and the major lessons he hopes to pass on to the next generation. Enjoy the show. Okay, Jim, welcome to the Inside Athletic Training Podcast. We're excited to have you on for today's episode. I want to start by chatting with you a bit about your background. A lot of our listeners who are athletic trainers, students, and educators may not have much info about you and your career. So let's start from the beginning. Talk to our listeners about where are you from, and also how you got into athletic training as your interest.
So I'm originally from a little town in Minnesota called Bird Island. It's about 1,200 people, southwest Minnesota, about 100 miles straight west of Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. Growing up in a small town, we had really, really good sports teams, but I wasn't good enough, and I knew that from an early age. And I approached the football coach at the time, Jack Omarco, to be the student manager when I was in ninth grade. And normally he would have student managers that were in sixth or seventh grade, but I convinced him to let me do it. And so I was the student manager for the football team. We lost in the state championship game. And then the basketball coach, Jerry Wohler, said, "Hey, would you like to be the student manager for the basketball team?" Which I said yes. And so that's kind of how I got my foot into it. Then when I was a junior, the two coaches came to me and said, "Listen, we see this article from Kramer newsletter magazine about a two-day workforce at Mankato State University." And at the time, Mankato State University was one of the first colleges or universities to have at the time it was a minor program. So I went to that. I met the head trainer, Gordy Graham, fell in love with it, taught how to tape ankles, taught some basic first aid, how to treat some injuries. And so when I came back, I did all the taping for the football and basketball team. So the players loved it. The coaches loved it because they didn't have to do it anymore.
Sure.
And then, so I got my inkling to go. And so I said, well, I want to go to Mankato State to go to college. And that's where I went to college. University, it's called Minnesota State University at Mankato. And so I went there, and took me 5 years to go to get through college. But I got a degree in physical education and a minor degree in athletic training. And my goal was to, be a high school teacher and then be the athletic trainer for that high school. This is 1985 when I graduated from college. So a lot of high schools did not have athletic trainers at the time. But there were no teaching jobs. And so my college roommate, his girlfriend's dad was the basketball coach at Army at West Point. And he goes, "This guy's looking for an athletic trainer." So I contacted him. He said, "We'd love to have you. It's 3 weeks. It's a boys' week, a girls' week, and then a boys' week. And it's all the best basketball players out of New York City. Army or West Point is very close to New York City. And so this was before they had, AAU basketball, Nike camps or whatever. And so we had these incredible athletes, boys and girls. And then on the third week, I'm sitting in the field house with the doors open, watching the boats go down the Hudson River. And all of a sudden, this payphone is ringing. And I'm like, why is that payphone ringing? And it kept ringing and ringing. I thought somebody else would pick it up. So I went over and picked it up. And it was my head athletic trainer from Mankato State, Gordy Graham.
Wow.
And he goes, I said, hello. And he goes, I'm looking for Jim Kahmann. I said, I can never recognize his voice. I said, Gordy, it's Jimmy. He goes, you know how many payphones I've called in the last hour? And so he goes, there's an independent team in Utica, New York, called the Utica Blue Sox. They just fired their athletic trainer. The third base coach is a guy that went to Mankato State. His name was Gene Glenn, who I knew. He was a senior when I was a freshman, but he was an all-star, both basketball and baseball player. He was there as a coach for the Montreal Expos. And so it didn't pay hardly anything. And they said they're going to pay for my travel and room and board and stuff like that. So, so I took it. And that was on Wednesday. I said, I'm here till Friday. And he said, that's fine. So I took a train from West Point to Utica, New York. I got off. And so that's how I started my baseball career.
Yeah, no, it's never a linear straight line for anybody in this profession, as you know, and very interesting to hear your experience early on, how you got into the field. Well, Jim, I want to hear more about kind of your stops on the way to the big leagues. You mentioned your time in Utica. I know you worked in the Expo system and then along to the Twins. Talk about your stops in minor league baseball and share with our listeners who might be interested in breaking into the game how important that time in minor league baseball was for you as an athletic trainer learning your way around baseball.
So again, my first year, 1985, was in Utica, New York. They had 11 players from the Montreal Expos, and then they had a bunch of players from other teams. Gene Glenn worked for the Expos. Bob Gebhardt was the minor league director. They came to see the Expos players play. And believe it or not, Bob Gebhardt lived in Mankato, Minnesota. And there, at the time, they had 3 athletic trainers in the minor league system with the Montreal Expos. So he knew the program. He knew what kind of education that we had at Mankato. And so that winter, he offered me a job. He said they had 2 openings. They had an opening in Burlington, Iowa, and an opening in West Palm Beach, Florida. So I told Geb, I said, Geb, I've been to Iowa before, but I've never been to Florida. So he chuckled and said, okay, that's what I knew you would take. So 1986, I was in West Palm Beach, Florida for the Expos. Our manager was Felipe Alou. What an incredible manager. One of the most well-liked people in baseball. And we had 2 players on that team. Well, we had a bunch of players. One player, Larry Walker, and the other was a left-handed pitcher, Randy Johnson. We had 2 future Hall of Famers on that team. And
Yeah, that's amazing.
I had Larry the previous year in Utica, and Larry was just a 17-year-old kid from Canada that just signed out of just to sign to play summer baseball, he thought. So I was in West Palm Beach for that year. The next year, the AAA trainer quit, and so the AA trainer, just like baseball, just like minor league players, trainers get promoted like players, but it's not like, okay, we did such a great year. You're waiting. Unfortunately, you're waiting for somebody to retire, get a different job, or unfortunately get released.
Yep.
So the next year, I go to AA, Jacksonville. Again, I had Larry Walker and Randy Johnson on the team.
Yeah,
so
wow.
I had some incredible talent. And after those 2 seasons, I also spent Major League Baseball or minor league teams. They have a period of time after the season called Instructional League, where they bring in 40 to 60 players, most that got drafted in June, to give them more time to play, the Expo way, or learn how to do things different than from college or high school.
Sure.
So after my next year so I spent 2 years in Jacksonville. And after my second year in Jacksonville, I got an opportunity to go to Venezuela. And I went to winter ball. And I was in a little town called Maracay, Venezuela.
Okay.
The Tigres de Aragua. And just like players, their winter ball, a lot of American players go down there. Each team has about 6 to 8 American players. And that goes throughout winter ball.
Mm-hmm.
Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Mexico. Those at the time were the 4 leagues for winter ball. And while I was there, the manager was a Minnesota Twins manager. And he goes, "Jimmy, I think we're looking for a trainer in AA." And I was like, "Well, okay, well, let me see where this could land." And incredibly, Bob Gebhardt came to Venezuela. And I asked Bob, because now he's working for the Twins. And I said, "Bob, you guys have any openings?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "We have an opening in AA." So I got a job at AA with the Twins. And my first year in the minor leagues with the Twins was in Orlando, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year, the AAA trainer quit. So I got promoted to AAA. So in 1990, after just spending 4.5 seasons in minor league baseball, I'm in AAA. And I felt very, very fortunate. I knew a lot of minor league athletic trainers that spent 5-6 years in A ball before they got promoted to AA, before they got promoted to AAA. There were guys in AAA that were there for 10, 15, 12 years. So my first year in AAA was in Portland, Oregon, and that was 1990. I spent the next 4 years in Portland. The team was relocated to Salt Lake City. So in 1995 and 1994 and 95, I was in Salt Lake City, which was great. They built this brand new stadium. It had 2 tiers. It would hold 16,000. I think we broke records for attendance in AAA that year. We averaged 13,000 a game. And that was with Sundays. Sundays we would get 7,000 because you're in the middle of the Mormon country, and so they take their religion very seriously. So you didn't have those huge crowds on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So the owner would have family night on Monday. You could get, a husband and wife and up to 4 kids, a hot dog and a soda for like $25.
Yeah. So
we would have 16,000 in the stadium on a Monday. And, visiting teams just could not believe that. Mm-hmm. So the next 2 years I was in Salt Lake City. So I spent 6 years in AAA. And then I got the call to the big leagues. And it was the day I got called to the big leagues, I'll never forget. It was the day O.J. Simpson was acquitted in his murder trial.
Wow.
So you can't. People always say, "Well, what happened? How'd you get to the big league again?" I said, "Well, that was the day." So I was hired as the assistant athletic trainer for the Minnesota Twins in 1996, and then I was assistant athletic trainer for the next 6 years, and then in 2002, I became the head athletic trainer for the Minnesota Twins.
Yeah,
So
quite the road from quite a quick rise through minor league baseball, which, as you mentioned, a lot of your former colleagues, PBATS alumni, even current athletic trainers in baseball will tell you it usually takes much more time than that. Well, Jim, when you arrived in Minnesota, in Minneapolis to become the assistant athletic trainer with the Twins. Describe that feeling. Did you feel prepared for a big league job? Did you feel ready? And what were your thoughts when you made it to the show?
well, because I was a Minnesota kid, it was
Yeah, very
it was
special.
really emotional for me that first opening day, and even spring training. Uh, excuse me. So when you're in AAA, you get invited to big league camp. So
Mm-hmm.
you're in big league camp during spring training. So you're around a lot of these guys, and you're around the head trainer and the assistant trainer. So you get a good working relationship. The other great thing about being in the big leagues as an athletic trainer, that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about travel. You don't have to worry about equipment. You don't have to
Yeah.
worry about, uh, hotel reservations or flights, or
Mm-hmm.
you, that's somebody else's job. So all you had to do and concern yourself was being an athletic trainer.
Yep.
Uh, People that aren't in the business don't understand that, and they don't understand well, that's the way they used to do it. That's why they had, all these minor league athletic trainers. You had all these jobs. You had,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, it was different. And so now all you had to concentrate were on injuries and how to rehab them, and do the work you were told or taught in college or university.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And I know, from talking to a lot of people across minor league baseball, current and former athletic trainers, there's so much that goes on in the minor league side. Like you said, back in the day, booking travel, and there's no travel secretary at that level, and you do everything versus just focusing on your skills as an athletic trainer. So that's it's interesting to hear your thoughts on that as well. Well, Jim, you made it from being the assistant athletic trainer with the Twins to, as you mentioned before, the head athletic trainer. Talk about the change there, difference in responsibilities at that time in the big leagues, and how things changed for you becoming the head athletic trainer for your hometown team.
Well, being the head athletic trainer, you have 99% more responsibility. I would always joke with people, the greatest job in baseball is being the assistant athletic trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Being the head athletic trainer, a lot of stuff falls on your shoulders. If a
Yeah,
player doesn't get back right away, if something happens, or it falls on the head athletic trainer's shoulders.
sure.
So that took me a little while to understand. It was very difficult, okay, because you're used to not having to be called down on the carpet about things. So, uh, but it was great. I mean, it's a learning process. Anybody that was an assistant athletic trainer for years and now becomes a head athletic trainer, they're going to tell you that first year is pretty scary. Not scary,
Yeah.
but it's, you're like, okay, now I really have to buckle down. I really, there's things that you can and can't do. And so that's what I'll say with the difference of being an assistant athletic trainer as opposed to the head athletic trainer.
Uh-huh. And talk a little bit about relationships with players. I know that's so important, building that trust. You were in the Twins organization for a long time. I'm sure you have some great memories and stories of players. Is it difficult when you kind of arrive as the new head athletic trainer to build that trust with players, with front office members, with everybody to kind of give you the confidence you need? Or did you find that coming up through the same organization was a huge benefit for you, having that trust and knowing the organization and the players as well?
Coming up through the organization helped tremendously.
Uh-huh.
Like I said before, when I was the AAA athletic trainer, I got to be able to come to big league spring training.
Yeah.
So I got to sit around the Kirby Pucketts and the Ken Herbecks and all these other incredible athletes. And so they got to see me on a daily basis during spring training. I got called up, I think it was 1992, after the minor league season, when they have all the players, when they expand the rosters to 40 men. The year before, they won the World Series, but they had a lot of injuries, and the head athletic trainer was like, I need more help. So in 1992, I got called to the big leagues in September. I got a call up, just like a minor league player does.
Sure.
And so that helped. And so the familiarity with the front office, the people around the stadium, now they see a face. Now they recognize, okay, I know this guy. I know what his responsibilities are. So once I did get to the big leagues, a lot of that, especially with the players, like you said, athletic trainers have an incredible relationship with players. Players will tell us things they don't want the manager to know, or the pitching coach or the hitting coach, but we become a counselor. We become a therapist to them. Yeah. And it's not only just their baseball lives, it's also their personal lives. And so if you can show the compassion to that player, they're going to understand, listen, this is somebody I can relate to. He can be my confidant. If I'm having a problem, I can go and say, Jim, listen, I need to discuss this with you. And he knows that I'm going to have his back. And so by being with the Twins in AAA for 6 years, that helped me with a lot of the younger players that were coming up through the system, because I had them in AA, I had them in AAA. And then being at big league camp, I had those veteran players that saw me around and understood. And, those players say, hey, listen, Jimmy's a great guy. Hopefully that's what they were saying. So that transition with the players was, a lot smoother. Yeah. The staff is a little different, because it's a big league staff. They don't, you would interact with them during spring training, but you were just the third person. You weren't there for the season. And so once you became the assistant trainer, and then also eventually the head athletic trainer, your working relationship with the on-field staff and the general manager and those types of people really took a different turn.
No, that's very interesting to hear. And I know so much of the work you do and probably did as a head athletic trainer, you relied so much on your staff, your assistant athletic trainers. Talk about how important those people are. I know staffs today in Major League Baseball have gotten really, really big. For those listeners out there who are younger, talk about the staff that you had day one as the head athletic trainer with the Minnesota Twins. Were there, one assistant and you? Was there two assistants? Were there physical therapists, manual therapists? What did it look like back then compared to today?
I joked with somebody the other day when I was watching one of the first playoff games, and it's, playoff games, the first game in the city, they introduce everybody. You're on the first or third base line. We used to have, there was 5 people. There was a head athletic trainer, the assistant trainer, strength and conditioning, and then the home clubhouse guy and the visiting clubhouse guy. So there were 5 guys standing at the end of the line. Yeah. The other day I counted like 11.
Oh, yeah.
Ancillary people. And I'm going, holy smokes, what's going on here? So you're absolutely right. Back in the day, even when I started, all we had was an head athletic trainer, assistant athletic trainer. We did not have a strength and conditioning person yet. So the first 2 years, it was just Dick Martin and myself, doing everything. And then the next year we hired an assist or a strength and conditioning coach. Yeah. And that was it. And that's the way. We didn't have a third trainer. At that time, there were some teams. By the time I got to the big leagues, I would say there was probably, 10 to 12 major league organizations that had 2 assistants.
Okay.
and then a strength guy, and maybe a massage therapist or a physical therapist or whatever. But the twins were always not. I wouldn't say they were behind, because a lot of times, we had really great records of least amount of days of our players being on the disabled list.
Sure.
And I know the GM at the time was wary of hiring another person to say, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the number of days we have people on the disabled list? So
Yeah.
that was always a concern. But we did not have a third trainer. But the great thing about when I became the head athletic trainer, I was able to hire the trainer that was at AAA, who was also at AA all the time I was in AAA. And so when I
Okay.
got the assistant athletic trainer, Rick McWayne became the AA or the
Yeah.
AAA trainer. And then once I became the head trainer, Rick became my assistant.
Hmm.
And so we always worked well together. So it was we always had a great working relationship. We didn't have, there were, okay, here's a new guy, this is going to be a work in progress. It wasn't like that. It was a very smooth transition.
Yeah.
And so, and the same thing uh, with Dave Prumer was the A-ball trainer, and then he became the AA trainer, and then he became the AAA trainer. So when we had spring training, I had already worked with Dave in the
Uh-huh.
minor leagues. And so once I got to the big leagues, Rick's the assistant. Now here comes spring training. We need that third trainer for spring training. And there was Dave Prumer. So it
Yeah.
was great. We all worked very well together.
Let's pause for a quick message from our partners at the United States Department of Labor's Office of Disability Employment Policy.
All of us have a role to play in promoting a mental health friendly workplace.
So what can I do to help?
As a CEO, I can set the tone for a supportive culture.
As a manager, I can offer assistance and accommodations.
As a coworker, I can be a source of support.
As someone with a mental health condition, I can ask for what I need to perform my best.
What can I do?
What can I do?
I can remind others that none of us are alone.
And that we all benefit from workplaces that promote good mental health.
Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
Now here's more from our conversation with Jim Kahmann. Yeah, it's so important for the staffs to get along, and you're a family. You spend more time with those guys than your own real family. So it's important for you guys to be on the same page, and it's cool to hear your stories there. I know Rick and Dave are great guys who had a awesome career with the Twins as well. So it's really, really cool to hear that from you. Well, Jim, I want to kind of pivot here. I know, the main reason for having you on, obviously want to discuss your career, but you have something new to announce here. You recently became an author. I would love to start at the beginning. Where did you get the idea for your book? First of all, you can let the listeners out there know where they can read more about the book, what it's called, and all that good stuff.
So the title of the book is called My Life in Baseball, and it's a memoir of my first 5 years in the minor leagues. And just like any athletic trainer you talk, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, you start telling stories. You see somebody on TV and I said, oh, I've got a story about that, or that city, or something like that. And it's riveting to these people. And they're like, Jim, you tell great stories. You should write a book. And in my head, I was always like, well, who's going to want to read a book about an athletic trainer, especially in the minor leagues?
Uh-huh.
That was not my goal. To write a book was not my goal. So I retired. After I got out of baseball, I spent 16 years working for Game Ready, which a lot of athletic trainers know. It's a motorized cold therapy unit that all these athletes use. So I was very successful in that. I had retired about 4 years ago. So now I had a lot of time on my hand. I couldn't play golf every day. I played 3 days a week. So I had a lot of extra time. And then I said to myself, you know what? Let me see if I can write about baseball or my life. And I sat down and it took me almost 4 months to write the first 2 chapters.
Okay.
I'm not a writer. Okay. I have a sister that is a very polished writer. And she wrote a book about our family. Our name is pronounced Kahmann, but it's spelled with a K, Kahmann. And she wrote a book. I'm one of 12 children. I'm the 11th of 12 children.
Wow.
So that she wrote a book called The House of Commons. And it's about our life growing up with 12 kids. She's the second oldest. So a lot of the stories she wrote in the book, I was either not born yet or I was too young to know what happened. But it's a great book. And so I had inspiration from her. Unfortunately, it took her 20 years to write her book.
Okay.
So I just wrote down no intention of writing a book. And so let me write these 2 chapters. My wife was an incredible editor for me. This book would not have been published without her incredible help. So she would edit it. I would send it to my sister. My sister would edit it, and then she'd send it back completed. And then I would send it out to family and friends. And they just loved it. Again, most of my brothers and sisters were older, and they just were like, well, Jim's working in baseball somewhere this summer. I don't know exactly where. I don't know really, but he's working, So I wanted them to experience what I live.
Sure.
The other thing that's really hard is it's great to tell a story, but it's really difficult to put that story on paper to express exactly how I'm trying to tell the story.
Sure.
So that's why it took me 4 months to write the first 2 chapters, because I would sit there and for an hour I would write 2 or 3 or 4 paragraphs, and then I would look at it and I go, this is ridiculous, and I would just hit the delete button. It's so that's how I started. So once I wrote 2 chapters, and now people are like, oh, I want more. So the second chapter was my first few days, my first season in Utica, New York.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to myself, I'm going to start from the beginning. So I wrote about Utica. Incredible. I have some incredible stories about being in Utica. And so then I wrote about what I had to do in the off season. We didn't get paid very much money. So we had a winter job and going about getting that winter job and then going about negotiating your contract for the next year. Most people don't realize we signed year-to-year contracts. We didn't sign a 10-year contract. We didn't sign, 2-year contracts. So
Sure.
you were always in the winter, you were always negotiating another contract.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the trials and tribulations of, during the winter, and getting a job and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But then then I got into a very good space on how to write for me. And so I wrote the next season about West Palm Beach, Florida. That was 7 chapters.
Mm-hmm.
I would finish 2 or 3, send them out. Literally within a half an hour of sending them out, people would be like, Jim, I can't wait for the next chapters, And I had a list of it grew to about 50, 60 people that I was emailing these chapters to. So I write about West Palm Beach. I write about Jacksonville, the second year in Jacksonville. And then I came to write about being in Venezuela. And it took me a very long time to write about Venezuela. Everybody knows where Utica, New York is. Everybody knows where West Palm Beach is, or Jacksonville, or all these other minor league cities that we travel to. They don't know about Venezuela. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I sat down and I said, okay, I have to break this down and I have to talk about the country. At the time, it was a democratic country. The year I was there, they had an election. I shook hands with both presidential candidates. They were both in the same city in Maracaibo on a Sunday afternoon. and the language and the barrier that is with that. I did not speak Spanish. The greatest advice I got was from a Latin player when I was in instruction league right before I came to Venezuela. He said, buy 2 books. You buy an English to Spanish book and buy a Spanish to English book.
Uh-huh.
Have both of them on you so that when you meet somebody, you hand them the Spanish to English. They're trying to translate what they want to say in English. You're trying to translate in Spanish. And it's like a Laurel and Hardy show, But it was one of those things. So you have to explain that to people. You have to explain, winter ball is totally different than, more the structure that you see in Major League Baseball and minor league baseball. There's a lot more, not shenanigans, but a lot different stuff that goes on during a game. Okay.
Yep.
There would be fights in the stands. Okay. The pitcher would step off the mound, and then you would hear this roar, and you would see 2 people literally throwing haymakers at each other.
Uh-huh.
And then once they got tired, then the cops would throw haymakers with their billy clubs and then drag these 2 poor souls out.
Yeah.
And that would happen 3 or 4 times a game, And so, so I had to explain all that. I had to explain how the season went. And the playoffs are so much different. And then leaving the country, they pay your salary and they also have to pay your taxes. So it's not like, okay, tomorrow we lost in the 7th game in the Venezuelan World Series. You can't go home the next day.
Sure.
They have to pay your taxes and you have to get that. It's called an avencia on your passport. So, those are things that you have to explain. So in reality, it took me almost a year to write about Venezuela.
Wow.
And so when I was done writing, I thought to myself, I'm done writing. I'm tired of writing. I've been writing for over 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I told everybody, I said, listen, this is the last chapter. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to write anymore. I'm tired of writing. And I just need a break. And so, everybody thought that was okay. And that was in early January of this year.
Yeah.
I go home to Minnesota for an event in March. One of my older brothers was a printer, and he helped get my sister's book printed. So we meet my sister and brother for breakfast, and he has this book. And he had taken all my stories and had it bound in a book. And he goes, Jim, you wrote a book. And I go, wow. It was like Christmas and my birthday.
Yeah.
All in one. I mean, you write and you write and you write, and you don't really realize how much I've written. There's this book. And so he said, let's try and do this. I said, okay, but let me write another season. And that way that will give the people that have read all my stories a reason to buy the book. They're going to say, well, I don't need to write the book, buy the book. I've read all the stories.
Sure.
So I was able to write my next season, which was with the Orlando Twins, my first year with the Minnesota Twins. And I explained that on how I went from the Expos to the Twins. That was a whole chapter that I wrote about because some people just knew me as working for the Minnesota Twins. They didn't know that I had spent those years with the Expos.
Sure.
So I said, well, let me write about the 1989 Orlando Twins. So that's what I did. It took me about 2 months to get those chapters done. And then it took us about 4 to 5 months going back and forth with the publisher. We added a lot of pictures. I found some great pictures for the book. My brother and sister found old pictures of our family for the book. So, those pictures got tied in. And so about a month ago, they said, we have it done. We're going to print 350 copies on the first printing. my brother lives in Minnesota. My brother said, okay, they're going to send you 150 copies. I'm going to have 200 copies here. So I got the first set of, I got my first 150. People I had known, I said, okay, the book is coming out. We're self-published. There are no freebies, okay? All these people thought they were going to get a free book, and I'm like, I can't give away any freebies, okay? It's too expensive. So
Yeah.
that worked out really well. And in fact, UPS showed up on a Saturday at 3:00, and I called a buddy that lived around the corner, and he goes, I want to be the first book. And so I sold the book 10 minutes later.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's a labor of love for sure for you, Jim. And you have so many, just like many of your former colleagues across the league, so many great stories about working with different athletes and different personalities. And I think, sitting around tables with yourself or, Rick Griffin from the Mariners and other guys, Ron Porterfield with the Dodgers. So many guys have just amazing stories about their time in winter ball and instructional league, and stories like you about Larry Walker and Randy Johnson with the Expos. Just really cool stuff for any baseball fan out there. Well, Jim, to wrap up today, I wanted to kind of ask you, one more question here. The field of athletic training is growing very fast. As we mentioned before, so many young kids are looking to break into the game, and there's so many positions open and opportunities for them. What's your best advice for someone who breaks into baseball and really wants to become a head athletic trainer in Major League Baseball? What's your best advice for them to kind of stick through the grind of minor league baseball and kind of add to their skill set as they make their way toward the top like you did?
Yeah, you really have to start at the bottom. You have to start in rookie ball or A ball, work your way up just like a player does. Baseball is so much more unique than any of the other professional sports in the fact that it has a huge minor league system, so that you can, as a young kid, get hired out of college and hone your skills there. Whereas in football, basketball, these other sports, they don't really want to hire a kid right out of college to work in the big leagues or,
Sure.
Professional football. And those jobs don't come along like that. So those people did the same thing. They worked, as a third or fourth athletic trainer for years and decades before they, moved up along the line. But I would say patience. You have to have an idea that this isn't something you're not going to get rich at.
Mm-hmm.
Salaries, hopefully salaries today are much more improved, and I'm sure they are. But again, patience is a good word. You have to understand that you might have to, live out of your suitcase for a few years.
Sure.
It's not an easy job, but it's, at the end of the day, it's so fulfilling. When you get a player back on the field and he hits that game-winning hit or he throws a 9-inning shutout, at the end of the day, you feel like you were on the field with that guy. And so that's the enjoyment. That's the fun part of things. And it's just, patience is a good word. You just don't expect to graduate from college, even if you have a 4.0 degree and you pass your certification on the first chance, that you're going to get a job in the, or even getting the job as the head athletic trainer for the Duke basketball team. Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to have to work a lot of minor or smaller activities in sports at Duke before you can, get your foot in to be the head athletic trainer for the Duke basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
So that patience is a great word, and understanding that this is going to take a little bit of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's really great advice. I know everybody's ultimate goal is to get to the mountaintop, to get to Major League Baseball and become a head athletic trainer like you did, Jim, which is obviously a huge accomplishment for anyone that makes that happen. But again, really, really interesting to hear your stories about, even just a couple decades ago being an athletic trainer in Major League Baseball and how much things have changed. And we really appreciate your time today. But Jim, before you go, would love to give you a second to share with the audience about where they can find the book, how they can contact you, if anyone out there is interested in grabbing a copy for themselves.
Yeah, really the only way is to either call me, text me, or email. And my email is jimtheiceman@hotmail.com. And then my cell phone is 561-876-6796. The cost for a book is $20. I will autograph it for you. But if I have to ship it to you, there'll be an additional $5 for shipping and handling. We send it out book rate. And so that can take, it's a third-class mailing. So that can take anywhere from 4 to 8 days to get to you. But you're going to get it. But those are the only two places to get the book from me.
Okay,
I don't
perfect.
have a website right now, but it's, I feel very satisfied with the book. I've had a lot of feedback. In 3 weeks, I myself have sold 120, almost 130 books.
That's amazing.
So, and I've gotten some great feedback about, Jim, I can't believe this story about so-and-so. It's funny. I love the way you write. I feel like I'm standing next to you while this event is going on. And that's kind of how I wanted to write the book, is you're standing next to me while this was going on. So,
yeah.
So that's where you can get it. And I look forward to hopefully, sending out as many copies as I can and have another 350 books published.
Yeah, no, that's great, and I'm very happy for you for your success. And I know it was a labor of love and such hard work and a grind to get this done. So, Jim, we appreciate you coming on the show today, sharing your stories about athletic training, your career, and obviously your new book, which we're all excited to read very soon. But we will make sure everybody out there knows where to get it, and we really appreciate your time today.
One last thing. I really want to thank you, Sam, and I want to thank Romano and Associates. They've been such a great help for PBATS, Professional Baseball Athletic Trainer Society. When I started, in the big leagues, it was a grind to get people to understand what we did, and Romano and Associates took over all of the promoting and making sure that people knew what a professional athletic trainer did and was.
Yeah.
And Neil, I worked with Neil for a number of years, and I just really wanted to thank you guys at Romano and Associates for the incredible ability to promote PBATS.
Oh, well, it's a labor of love for us as well. It's a profession that often goes unnoticed and shouldn't be that way. You guys are so important to the game of baseball, and everybody's, realizing that now. So it wouldn't be possible without the alumni and guys like you sharing their stories. So again, Jim, we really appreciate your time and the kind words.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you for listening to the Inside Athletic Training Podcast. For more information about PBATS and athletic training, visit pbats.com. See you next time.